After nearly 4 decades, Christina Applegate is finally sharing details about a relationship that fans of Married with Children never fully understood. For years, audiences believed they knew everything about the cast. They watched the Bundy family insult each other, argue nonstop, and create some of television's most outrageous moments. But behind the cameras, a very different story was unfolding. And according to Christina, the man at the center of that story was Ed O'Neill. What she recently revealed isn't a scandal. It isn't a shocking betrayal. In fact, it's something far more powerful. Because what Christina exposed about Ed O'Neill completely changes the way many fans see their relationship. The truth is that Ed wasn't just her television father. He became something much more important. When Christina Applegate first joined Married with Children in 1987, she was only 15 years old. The show was unlike anything television audiences had seen before. It was controversial, provocative, and constantly pushing boundaries. At the center of the chaos was a teenager suddenly thrown into the spotlight. Christina was cast as Kelly Bundy, a character known for her beauty and often the target of jokes that pushed the limits of network television. Overnight, she found herself working alongside veteran actors in an industry that could be incredibly unforgiving to young performers. That's when Ed O'Neill stepped in. Ed was already in his 40s when the show began. He had experienced the highs and lows of Hollywood. He understood how quickly fame could affect young actors. More importantly, he understood the dangers that came with sudden attention. According to Christina, Ed immediately became protective of her. While viewers only saw him playing the grumpy Al Bundy, behind the scenes he was watching out for the youngest members of the cast. He paid attention to situations that made Christina uncomfortable. He stepped in when conversations became inappropriate. He made sure she felt safe in an environment that could have easily become overwhelming. And he did all of this without ever seeking recognition. No interviews, no publicity, no credit. He simply looked after her because he believed it was the right thing to do. As the years passed, their bond only grew stronger. Christina spent 11 years on Married with Children. Think about that for a moment. She joined the show as a 15-year-old teenager and left as a 26-year-old woman. Those years shape a person's identity. Those are the years when you discover who you are, what you believe, and what kind of future you want. Through all of it, Ed was there. Crew members who worked on the series have described seeing Ed quietly checking in on Christina between scenes. He would ask how she was doing. He would make sure she wasn't feeling overwhelmed. He would give advice when she needed it and space when she didn't. The relationship wasn't manufactured for publicity. It was genuine. And, according to people who worked on the show, it became one of the strongest bonds on the entire set. There were moments viewers never knew about. Late-night shoots where Ed made sure Christina got home safely. Long conversations about life and career decisions. Situations where he reportedly pushed back when he felt something wasn't right for the younger cast members. Over time, Christina stopped seeing him only as a co-worker. He became a mentor, a guide, and in many ways, a father figure. What's remarkable is that Ed never tried to control Christina's career. Instead, he encouraged her to grow. As she became more confident and experienced, he treated her less like a student and more like an equal. By the final seasons of the show, Christina had become one of television's biggest stars. Kelly Bundy was an iconic character, and audiences loved her. Ed watched that transformation happen in real time, and he couldn't have been prouder. But then something happened that almost destroyed everything they had built together. In 1989, Married with Children faced one of the biggest controversies in television history. A Michigan woman named Terry Ricalta launched a campaign against the show after finding its content offensive. She contacted advertisers, encouraged boycotts, and appeared in media interviews demanding action. The pressure worked. Major advertisers began pulling support. Network executives started worrying. There were serious conversations about whether the show could survive. For Christina, who was still a teenager, it was terrifying. The series had become her entire world. Her career, her routine, and her future all seemed tied to its success. Suddenly, everything appeared to be in danger. But once again, Ed O'Neill stepped forward. Rather than panicking, he focused on keeping the younger cast members calm. He reminded them that they couldn't control public opinion. He reminded them that they had created something unique. And most importantly, he reminded them that their worth wasn't determined by headlines. Christina has said that what she remembers most about that period wasn't the controversy itself. It was Ed's steady presence. While everyone else worried about ratings and advertisers, Ed focused on the people around him. Ironically, the boycott ended up making the show even more popular. Viewers became curious about the sitcom everyone was talking about. Ratings increased. The controversy backfired. Instead of destroying Married with Children, it turned it into a cultural phenomenon. And through it all, the cast became even closer. They had survived their first major crisis together. Little did they know, much bigger challenges were waiting in the future. When Married with Children finally ended in 1997, the cast expected a proper farewell. But it never came. There was no grand finale, no emotional goodbye, no celebration of 11 years together. One day they were filming episodes. The next day it was over. For Christina, the ending felt strange. She had spent nearly half her life on that set. The people around her weren't just co-workers anymore. They were family. Then suddenly, everyone went their separate ways. The routine disappeared. The set was dismantled. And an important chapter of her life came to an abrupt end. Many television casts drift apart after a show ends. That didn't happen here. Christina and Ed stayed connected. They continued talking. They met for meals. They checked in on each other's lives. The relationship that began as mentor and student had evolved into a lifelong friendship. As Christina built a successful post-Bundy career, Ed remained one of her biggest supporters. She starred in hit films like The Sweetest Thing and Anchorman. She earned critical acclaim in Samantha Who? Years later, she would receive even greater praise for her work in Dead to Me. Throughout every success, Ed was watching, not as a fellow actor, as someone who genuinely cared. At the same time, Ed experienced a remarkable second act in his own career. After years of being known primarily as Al Bundy, he reinvented himself through Modern Family. The sitcom became a global success. A new generation discovered Ed O'Neill. Awards followed. Critical praise followed. And yet, despite all of his accomplishments, he never forgot where he came from. Whenever conversations turned toward Married with Children, Christina's name was never far away. Their connection had endured long after the cameras stopped rolling. For years, fans hoped for a reunion. Rumors surfaced constantly. Every interview seemed to include questions about bringing the Bundys back together. The cast appeared interested. The audience was certainly interested. But somehow it never happened. Then everything changed in 2021. On August 10th, Christina Applegate shared devastating news with the world. She had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. The announcement shocked fans. The disease affects the central nervous system and can impact movement, balance, vision, and cognitive function. There is no cure, only management. For Christina, life changed overnight. Simple tasks became difficult. Physical movement became unpredictable. Plans she once took for granted suddenly became uncertain. But perhaps the hardest part wasn't physical. It was emotional. Christina has spoken openly about grieving the life she thought she would have, grieving the future she imagined, grieving the version of herself that existed before the diagnosis. The honesty resonated with millions of people. For the first time, fans saw the private struggle behind the public image. And during one of the darkest periods of her life, Ed O'Neill was once again there. When he learned about her diagnosis, he reached out immediately. Not because reporters were watching, not because cameras were rolling, because that's what he had always done. He checked on her, supported her, reminded her she wasn't facing the battle alone. Christina later revealed how much those gestures meant to her. In moments when life feels uncertain, people show you who they really are. Ed showed her exactly who he had always been. The same protector, the same mentor, the same friend. Meanwhile, the entire Married with Children cast rallied around her. Katie Sagal offered support. David Faustino reached out. Amanda Burse stood by her. But there was something especially meaningful about Ed's presence. After all these years, he was still looking out for her, just as he had when she was 15. Recent years have brought even more attention to Christina's journey. Her podcast, Messy, which he co-hosts with Jamie Lynn Sigler, has become a powerful platform for conversations about life with MS. The podcast has allowed Christina to connect with audiences in a completely new way. She's funny, honest, vulnerable, and often incredibly inspiring. Listeners have praised her willingness to discuss difficult subjects that many people avoid. In a way, it represents another chapter in her evolution. She's no longer just Kelly Bundy. She's a survivor, an advocate, and a voice for people facing similar challenges. One of the most emotional moments came in November 2022 during Christina's Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony. Appearing publicly after her diagnosis required enormous courage. She arrived with a cane. Her movements were slower, but she showed up. Friends, colleagues, and fans gathered to celebrate her career. The event quickly became emotional. As Christina spoke about her journey, many in attendance struggled to hold back tears. The moment served as a reminder of how much she meant to the entertainment industry. Then came another unforgettable appearance. At the Emmy Awards in 2023, Christina walked onto the stage and received a standing ovation. The audience rose to its feet. The applause continued and continued for nearly a full minute. Many viewers watching at home were moved to tears. Christina, staying true to her personality, managed to lighten the moment with humor. But beneath the laughter was something deeply powerful. It was recognition, respect, and love from an industry that had watched her fight through unimaginable challenges. Behind the scenes, old friends approached her throughout the evening. Former co-workers, actors, directors, people she hadn't seen in years. And among them were people from the Married with Children family. People who had never stopped caring about her, including Ed O'Neill. Today, fans still wonder whether a true Married with Children reunion will ever happen. The answer remains uncertain. Christina's health understandably changes the equation. Traditional television production can be physically demanding. Long hours on set aren't easy. But one thing has become very clear. If a reunion happens, it will happen on Christina's terms. The cast has repeatedly made it known that the Bundy family isn't complete without Kelly. They aren't interested in doing it without her. That loyalty says everything. Because the real story behind Married with Children was never just about ratings, controversy, or television success. It was about relationships. Real relationships. The kind that survive decades. The kind that survive illness. The kind that survive fame. When Christina recently spoke about Ed O'Neill, she wasn't exposing a scandal. She was exposing something much rarer. She was revealing the truth about a man who quietly spent decades supporting the people around him. A man who protected her when she was young, guided her when she was uncertain, celebrated her successes, and stood beside her during her hardest moments. That's the side of Ed O'Neill most viewers never saw. The side that existed when the cameras stopped rolling. And maybe that's why their story continues to resonate today. Because in an industry famous for broken relationships and temporary friendships, Christina Applegate and Ed O'Neill built something lasting, something real. Nearly 40 years after they first met, their bond remains unbroken. And perhaps that's the biggest revelation of all. Not that Ed O'Neill was a television father, but that he became family. The kind that never leaves. The kind that shows up when life gets difficult. The kind that stays by your side no matter what. And according to Christina Applegate, that's exactly who Ed O'Neill has been from the very beginning.